Hello and welcome to my yugioh channel. So today we're actually going to be covering the rares within the Duel Links main box 31, which is called Sharp Fang. Number 56, Gold Rat, is a light attribute beast type Xyz monster. It's a rank 1 with 500 attack and 600 defense. It requires 3 level 1 monsters, and the effect is once per turn you can detach 1 Xyz material from this card, draw 1 card, then shuffle 1 card from your hand into the deck. This card is very difficult to bring out. Essentially, you need to be running a dedicated level 1 engine somewhere within that deck to bring it out to begin with. It's so weak in its stats, and its effect is, you would get better effect from something like Card Trader than you ever would from this card. The only level of significance this has is, I remember when it was shown in the anime, it was used by a burglar who was trying to rob a shopping mall, and then suddenly Kite comes in bursting through I think it was the top, like the roof, with Orbital in hand, and then forces the challenge against him. He freezes time to and slows it down to a point where he actually is able to confuse the criminal, and he's easily able to destroy his opponent. It was also used by Vectrix when he defeated Kite during the semi-finals of the Duel Carnival, and he stole that number, and when they had the spear field, it was where they could basically Xyz summon using 2 level monsters in their hand, just bringing out a random Xyz monster. This was one of those that was featured in that duel. Aquadragon is a water attribute sea serpent fusion monster. It's a level 6 with 2,250 attack and 1,900 defense. The fusion materials it needs are Fairy Dragon, Amazon of the Seas, and Zone Eater. And this card has no effect to its name. It's one of the older fusion monsters, and the fact that it needs 3 monsters in order to summon it, good luck. I don't see anyone playing this unless they're trying to troll their opponent that hard. It's not worth even really mentioning. Mermail Abyss Lung is a water attribute fish type level 4 with 1,200 attack and 1,800 defense. The effect is your opponent cannot target face-up water monsters for attacks, except this one, and all water monsters you control gain 300 attack. The attacks point increase is okay, it's not necessary. It's a nice little boost. It's actually more decent for the fact that it forces all of the attacks to go against it rather than your opponent. If you're smart and pair this with something like Power of the Guardian, you can essentially protect all your other monsters from attacks. It's very key with combinations such as Drill Barnacle, which can keep continuing to attack directly and gaining attack points when doing that. If you can keep those 2 cards in combination with each other, then actually you can get it to a point where your Drill Barnacle becomes enough of a threat that your opponent really can't deal with it. Gogo Gigas is an Earth attribute rock type level 4 with 0 attack and 2,200 defense. The effect is, when this card is in your graveyard, if you special summon a Go monster, except during the damage step, you can special summon this card from your graveyard in face-up defense position. You cannot conduct your battle phase the turn you activate this effect. You can only use the effect of Gogo Gigas once per turn. So this is actually quite decent because you can go into a rank 4 Xyz monster. The conditions are, though, it does need to be set up in the graveyard, and the thing is you do lose out on your battle phase. 2 issues which this card introduces, and there are so many other cards already in Duel Links which just outpower this. The nice 2,200 defense on it it's okay, but it's balanced out by quite great weaknesses to it. Gorgonic Ghoul is a dark attribute rock type level 1 with 100 attack and 100 defense. The effect is, if you control a Gorgonic Ghoul, you can pay 300 life points to special summon this card from your hand. You can use the effect of Gorgonic Ghoul up to 2 per turn. This is one way you could get Golden Rat out, but generally speaking, I wouldn't even bother. It's not worthwhile. If there are other rank 1 monsters, which I'm sure there will be in the future, there's a couple I can name, number 13 and number 31. are both fantastic for what they can do, and they're both ranked. Gorgonic Cerberus is a dark attribute rock type level 3 with 1300 attack and 300 defense. When this card is normal summoned, you can make all rock type monsters you control become level 3. So it means you can go into something like Leviathan Dragon, Wind Up Zenmanes, something like that. There are other rank 3s out there. Even when you get to some of the Gorgonic Xyz monsters, those are rank 3 as well. Okay, now we're getting into some of the counters to some of the Xyz monsters. It might not seem that powerful a card, but Overlay Owl is one of those examples. It's a wind attribute winged beast type level 4 with 800 attack and 1600 defense. The effect is once per turn you can pay 600 life points to detach one Xyz material from a monster on the field. Again, this doesn't seem like much, but if your opponent has some of these really annoying Xyz monsters, the quicker you can get rid of those Xyz materials, the more likely you are to be able to respond. This is just an easy way, and also you can, even if you just want to use the effect once to get rid of one of your opponent's overlay units, you can use it to Xyz summon into something else, to avoid you having any sort of threat. Overlay Eater is another example of this. It's a light attribute reptile type, level 2 with 300 attack and 800 defense. You can banish this card from your graveyard to take one Xyz material from a monster your opponent controls and attach it to an Xyz monster you control as Xyz material. It is quite niche because unless you're both got Xyz monsters on the field, this effect doesn't trigger. But it's always good to be able to get rid of one of your opponents, and even better still, to be able to power up your monster depending on what its effect is. Skull Kraken is a dark attribute aqua type level 3 with 600 attack and 1600 defense. The effect is when this card is normal summoned, you can target one face-up spell card your opponent controls, destroy that target. Once per turn, you can change the battle position of this card. I don't know how viable this card is. It's okay from certain perspectives. I mean, field spells, the equipped cards such as Power of the Guardian. Yes, this is really good against that because it's just face-up spell cards. It doesn't have to say it has to be a continuous spell. It doesn't have to be a ritual. It doesn't have to be this or the other. It's not fussy like some of the other cards are. It just has to be face-up. And also, this effect happens when it's normal summon, which means you summon it in attack mode. Being able to go into defense mode means that probably that way you can protect yourself from life point damage. The next card is Tripod Fish. This is a water attribute fish type, level 3 with 300 attack and 1300 defense. The effect is when this card is special summoned from the graveyard, you can target one face-up fish, sea serpent or aqua type monster on the field and increase its level by 1. So this can actually work on itself as well. So if you've got something that can just special summon this from the graveyard, you can make this a level 4, then you can go into one of your rank 4 Xyz monsters. That's the general purpose of this card. Spearshark is a water attribute fish type level 4 with 1600 attack and 1400 defense. The effect is when this card is normal summoned, you can increase the levels of all level 3 fish type monsters you currently control by 1. If this card attacks a defense position monster, inflict piercing battle damage to your opponent. The piercing effect is nice, but it's not necessary. It's better for the first effect, which is to raise all your level 3 monsters up. That's partly what Shark's deck sometimes had problems with at the beginning, that it didn't really know what it was trying to do. Some of it was banish, some of it was, battle through everything, some of it was alternative win conditions, some of it was rank 3, 4, and 5 Xyz monsters. So when they started introducing some of these level manipulation cards, such as this one, it helped to add the consistency and the flexibility to run all of those rank 3, 4, and 5s. That's the purpose of this card. The next card we have is Shark Kraken. It's a water attribute fish type level 6 with 2400 attack and 2100 defense. The effect is you can special summon this card from your hand by attributing one water monster. Okay, Shark doesn't run any Xyz monsters that are rank 6, so its viability is very short-lived. The reason I think it was introduced is because the other version you did have another level 6, I think it was Jawsman, I think that's the name of it, which was kind of the non-Xyz boss monster of his deck. I think to add to the consistency of that, that's why this card was brought out. It has been used a couple of times by Shark in Duels, and you know, it's being able to special summon itself very easily, even if you don't have any water monsters on your side of the field. So long as you can summon one, you can just tribute it to special summon this anyway. And 2,400 for a level 6 that can just bring itself out very easily isn't a problem. I mean, compare that to Joey Wheeler's Red Eyes Black Dragon. Same kind of stat line, actually slightly weaker on the defensive side at 2,000 defense rather than this 2,100. But it requires 2 tributes, or you're going to have to find ways of kind of reviving it at certain points with some of the spell and trap support. Big Whale is a water attribute fish type level 9 with 1,000 attack and 3,000 defense. The effect is when this card is tribute summoned, you can tribute this card, special summon 3 level 3 water monsters from your deck. Their effects are negated. This is actually meant to pair alongside a particular card, which is going to be mentioned next. It does shut down their effects, so you can essentially go into a rank 3 very easily. Those annoying ones that require 3 materials to its name. Even if you're not going to do that and just have this as defensive wall, that's always a good option. It wasn't classified as a boss monster from, it's not offensive, but it does give Shark a level of protection. Again, like Shark Kraken and Jawsman, it being, of an obscure rank or level means that it's not within the ranks that Shark uses. And so it was never really intended for that kind of purpose. This is the card I was mentioning just before with Big Whale. It's Starfish. It's a water attribute aqua type level 3 with 300 attack and 300 defense. The effect is once per turn you can increase the levels of all starfish you can control by 1. You're not able to do this if you are using Big Whale, but this is just fodder for your rank 3 Xyz monster if you want. Or if you're able to just bring this out through other effects, then you could potentially bring out a rank 4, 5, or 6, depending on what you want and what you're able to bring out from the staff. Supershark is a water attribute fish type level 4 with 1,600 attack and 1,200 defense. It cannot be used as a synchro material, and up to twice per turn you can target one fish type monster on the field, then activate one of these effects. Increase its level by 1 or reduce its level by 1. You cannot special summon any monsters during the turn you activate this effect, except water monsters. Again, this is one of those level manipulation cards. It's really good for bringing out the rank 5s when they get introduced. You have a couple of those, so that's always a decent option. Alternatively, you can go for the rank 3s, or you can just choose to ignore the effect and just go for your rank 4s. Hyper Ancient Shark Megalodon is a water attribute fish type, level 8, with 2,900 attack and 1,300 defense. The effect is when this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent, you can target one monster your opponent controls, destroy that target. If you're going to say about any type of monster being Shark's boss monster outside of his Xyz, it's this card. It is the most powerful card he has, just based on pure attack stat. Shark Drake has 2,800 attack. It's the second nearest, in not including any sort of effects. The secondary part is brilliant to having this effect, because if your opponent has something in attack position that is weak, and then a powerful monster that you can't seem to have gotten rid of, you can just get over the weaker monster, use the effect to get rid of the stronger monster. Essentially, you're killing 2 birds with 1 stone, because you're doing more damage by attacking the weaker monster, but you're still getting rid of the threat, which is the bigger monster. And because you have the choice of what you target of your opponents, if they've got 2 monsters on their field, you can get rid of the other card. Bryan Gear is a water attribute Sea Serpent level 7 with 1000 attack and 2600 defense. Its effect is if this card is normal or special summoned, you can target one water monster in your graveyard. This card gains attack equal to that monster's attack until the end of this turn. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can target one water monster you control. It gains 1000 attack until the end of this turn. You can only use each effect of Bryan Gear once per turn. So this card is quite difficult to summon. You can use it off of Mother Grizzly if your opponent actually attacks into that. And depending on what you've got in your graveyard, it can be quite decent. But actually, it's from the point of view that if your opponent has attacked into Mother Grizzly, the effect only for the boosting only lasts until the end of the turn. So if you're doing this on the back end of that effect, it on your next turn has no power. It loses all that attack. So that's why you don't want to do that. I don't know how you'd actually use this effectively because you have to tribute 2 monsters to bring it out. I know you've got Unshaven Angler. That's one way around it, and you've got other things you can do. The only thing I can think of as a combo is your opponent attacks into Mother Grizzly, you summon Unshaven Angler, try and defend that if you can for the rest of the battle phase. Your opponent ends their turn, you summon, you go into your turn, you then are able to tribute the Unshaven Angler to bring this out, and then use its effect. It does also rely on your graveyard to have a decent water attribute monster there to begin with. Because if it's decent, you can potentially OTK your opponent or do a lot of damage. The other thing about this is it is still a threat because it does provide some of your monsters with like an attack gain of their own, but this is also quite weak. Had it been until your next turn, it would have been more viable, but because it just ends, both effects end on a turn, means that either you're getting the effect right then and there, or you're just not getting the benefit of that at all. Princess of Sarugi is a wind attribute warrior type level 3 with 900 attack and 700 defense. It's a flip effect monster, and it's inflict 500 damage to your opponent for each spell and trap card on your opponent's side of the field. And now with the whole changes to the burn mechanics within Duel Links, cutting it in half, that's 250 per card they've got. They can have a maximum of 4 cards if your opponent is running a field spell as well. So you can do a maximum of 1000 points of damage, as opposed to if they manage to get its full effect off, 2000 points of damage. The burn effect damage is not enough to consider running it unless you can use it for rank 3 as well. Maybe make your own warrior deck abusing this effect as well, I don't know. But generally it's just a bit of a forgotten card. Amoeba is a water attribute aqua type level 1 with 300 attack and 350 defense. The effect is when you control of this face-up card on field shifts to your opponent, inflict 2000 points of damage to your opponent's life points. This effect can only be used once as long as this card remains face-up. The burn damage from this effect is useful, but it's half, remember now, so it's only 1000 points of damage. This could have been game-ending had this come out earlier before the rulings and this was changed. There are ways of doing this where you can actually change it, force the changing to your opponent. But as it is, it's not worth running anymore unless you're determined and your opponent has less than 1000 life points left. In which case, be my guest, try and find a way of giving this to your opponent. I'm sure there are cards, I just can't think of them at the moment. If you do know any, leave those in the comments down below. Mast Chopper is an Earth attribute Fiend type level 1 with 100 attack and 100 defense. The effect is if this card destroys an opponent's monster by a battle, inflict 2000 points of damage to your opponent. This is an amazing effect, but again, it's halved. And the thing is, unless you're managing to get this card up to crazy amounts of attack, or get your opponent's attack points to 0, this isn't getting over anything. It could be viable in the future, depending on what types of supporters it's out, and I'm sure there are ways of breaking this card. It's just none of them are coming to mind other than something like Shocktopus using that effect and then summoning this afterwards. Metalfish is a water attribute machine level 5 with 1600 attack and 1900 defense. I remember this card, I think I drew it out of something like Metal Raiders. It came out of one of those types of packs. It's one of the first level 5 monsters out there. That's why you can see the stat line up on it is not great. But it's a normal monster and it's just one of those pack fillers. There's nothing really to say about it other than for nostalgia. Crazyfish is a water attribute fish type level 4 with 1600 attack and 1200 defense. It's a normal monster, it's decent for a level 4 vanilla monster, but other than that there isn't really anything to say. Corroding Shark is a dark attribute zombie type level 3 with 1100 attack and 700 defense. It's another one of those normal monsters and it's just another pack filler. Boneheimer is a water attribute aqua level 3 with 850 attack and 400 defense. It's another one of those normal monsters that's a pack filler. Gogo Talisman is a continuous spell card with the effect while you control 2 or more Gogo monsters, you take no effect damage. Once per turn, when an attack is declared involving a Gogo monster you control, you can activate this effect. That monster you control cannot be destroyed by that battle. It's good in a Gogo themed deck. There aren't that many of those monsters as we can speak of at the moment. But as we get more release, maybe this will become a little bit more viable, perhaps not. Paralyzing Chain is a continuous spell card with the effect, when a card is sent from your opponent's deck to the graveyard by a card effect, inflict 300 damage to your opponent. This effect is okay, but it does pair with the Iron Chain monsters the most effectively. It can be used in combination with Robin Zombie, which does that. Sends a card from your opponent's deck to the graveyard every time you inflict battle damage. If you can inflict multiple small amounts of battle damage, then you're getting the 300 points of damage off each time you do that, plus you're getting rid of your opponent's decent cards. Thundershort is a normal spell card with the effect inflict 400 damage to your opponent for each monster they control. So if your opponent has multiple cards on the field, you can do a maximum of, now it's a maximum of 600, it was previously 1200, so the effect has been very much more. Kraken is a continuous spell card with the effect once per turn when a monster is sent from the field to the graveyard by a card effect, inflict 800 damage to the owner of the monster. This card is actually appropriately timed for when it was released. It was introduced near the beginning of Yu-Gi-Oh! Zeal, I think it was like episode 3 or 4, something around there, where Yuma was facing up to Mr. K, the mathematic teacher, who was using number 34, I think it was Terabyte, and what he was doing was stealing his opponent's monster, attacking directly with the opponent's monster that would then get destroyed by the effect of that continuous. I think it was also a continuous spell card which destroyed that monster after it attacked directly, and because it was originally Yuma's monster that had been taken, since he was the card owner, he took the 800 points of damage which went with this effect. Which means I wouldn't be surprised if we see Terabyte in maybe the next pack, maybe the next mini pack, if at all. Poseidon Wave is a normal trap card with the effect when an opponent's monster declares an attack, target the attacking monster, negate the attack, and if you do, inflict 800 damage to your opponent for each face-up fish, sea serpent, or aqua type monster you control. Again, it does half the damage, so it's if you've got all 3 types of monsters, that's 1200 points of damage. But the main point is that you're negating the attack. The extra burn damage is a little bit better because that provides you that extra level of protection as well. It's consistent, but it being a battle trap is susceptible to any sort of spell or trap removal because it can't activate outside of the battle phase. The next card is Explosive Urchin. This is a continuous trap card with the effect activate only when your opponent activates a trap card. During your standby phase, inflict 1000 damage to your opponent. Your opponent must control a face-up trap card for you to activate and resolve this effect. During your third end phase after activation, send this card to the graveyard. Okay, so this is decent because it can be used to do some damage, but it is very specific to a situation, and it has to be a case of your opponent has to have a face-up trap card to activate this. So it's just generally a lot of a bother to run this card. And the final card is Judgement of the Desert. It's a continuous trap card with the effect: the battle position of face-up monsters that are flipped face-up after activation of this card cannot be changed except with a card effect. This punishes your opponent if they're running flip-based monsters because they'll get stuck in attack mode. Traditionally, most of them don't tend to have very good attack points. They have decent effects, but other than that, they're susceptible to being just run over and ending up with lots of points of damage. I don't think this card is useful at all. It's just too situational, and it's just not great. I suppose you could counter it as a way of using it against some terrors, but even then they have quite strong effects that can just get rid of this. Had this been able to kind of negate the effects of flip effect monsters as well as stopping them from changing battle modes, I would definitely consider running it, but as it is, it's not a good idea. So what do you think of these cards? Was there anything you particularly liked in there? Anything you didn't like? What do you think about everything in general? Whatever you think, leave your comments down below. Like the video. Please click on the end screen to see another video. You'll get the best for viewer option on there. And don't forget to subscribe.